Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. President Trump is hosting the leaders of Congo and Rwanda at the White House. A deal signing today aims to bring an end to the conflict in eastern Congo. The FBI has arrested a suspect for placing pipe bombs near the U.S. Capitol on the eve of January 6, 2021. It's been nearly 5 years since that incident. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill get a classified briefing today from the Navy admiral who ordered a follow-up strike on a possible drug boat. More on the controversy amid the crackdown on cartels. A key vote on Obamacare is taking place next week, with bipartisan negotiations to reform the program underway. U.S. childhood vaccination schedule may face a major overhaul. A CDC advisory committee meets this week to consider revisions.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Thursday, December 4th. I'm Stephanie Cox. The FBI has arrested a suspect nearly 5 years after an individual placed pipe bombs near the U.S. Capitol on the eve of January 6, 2021. The suspect was apprehended in Virginia. The pipe bombs had been placed near the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees on the evening of January 5th, 2021. The devices ultimately did not explode after the bomb squad rendered them safe. But the FBI said both devices could have exploded and killed bystanders. Since then, authorities had sought the public's help in identifying an unknown individual captured in surveillance camera footage. Last January, the FBI revealed the suspect was about 5'7". The Bureau also released video of the suspect placing one of the bombs. Charges against the suspect have yet to be announced. And the State Department has formally rebranded the U.S. Institute of Peace as the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace ahead of a major U.S. brokered signing ceremony. President Trump is set to host leaders from Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo for the peace agreement signing in Washington, a step towards ending decades of conflict. The rebranding follows a turbulent year that included layoffs, legal challenges, and a federal judge ruling against earlier attempts by the administration to install its own leadership there. The White House told Fox News the change reflects Trump's peace through strength approach and said the former institute wasted taxpayer funds. The overhaul is one of the most sweeping agency restructures of Trump's second term. As President Trump expects a deal for peace in eastern Congo today, we take a closer look at the conflict between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. What's it all about and what's...
Rwanda-backed rebels staged a lightning advance in eastern Congo at the start of this year. The M23 group seized the region's two largest cities and raised fears of a wider war. This latest cycle in decades of violence has killed thousands of people and displaced hundreds of thousands. Rwanda has long denied backing the M23, though a report by UN experts in July concluded Rwanda exercises command and control over the rebels.
The agreement being signed.
On Thursday, Presidents Felix Tshisekedi and Paul Kagame are expected to ratify a US brokered peace deal that was signed by foreign ministers in June. Terms of the deal include the withdrawal of Rwandan troops and the formation of a joint security mechanism. Kinshasa and Kigali would launch an economic framework, the deal said, which they then agreed in November. The Trump administration has talked of facilitating billions of dollars of Western investment. That's in a region rich in critical minerals such as cobalt, lithium, and tantalum. Trump said in June that many American companies have shown interest in investing in Congo.
We're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here.
Last month, the top U.S. envoy to the region acknowledged that progress in implementing some measures on the ground had been slow. And on Tuesday, Congo and the M23 accused each other of ceasefire violations. Congo's army said the M23 had attacked its troops in multiple locations. That, an army spokesperson said, clearly showed an intention to sabotage peace agreements. The leader of a rebel alliance that includes M23 said it was Congolese forces that launched attacks, adding that the alliance had no choice but to defend itself.
And lawmakers on Capitol Hill received a classified briefing today from Admiral Frank Bradley. That's the Navy commander who ordered a follow-up strike that killed survivors of an attack on an alleged drug smuggling boat near Venezuela. Some legal experts warned the strike could constitute a crime if survivors were deliberately targeted. Bradley now leads U.S. Special Operations Command. He briefed top House and Senate lawmakers as pressure builds on Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Democrats are demanding the release of the full video, written orders, and the intelligence behind the operation. Republicans say the review will be thorough. The Pentagon said it has killed more than 80 drug smugglers in the broader campaign since September. And a key vote on Obamacare is set to take place next week, but it's unclear if some Republicans will break with the party leadership to support it or if the GOP will rally behind a new plan to replace Obamacare. NTD's Melina Weisskopf breaks it down.
Lawmakers are facing a fast-approaching December 30th deadline to renew COVID-era Obamacare subsidies. Otherwise, healthcare costs will skyrocket, by some estimates, an up to 175% increase in cost. Without a clear plan from leadership, a bipartisan group of lawmakers in the House is looking for solutions.
Our leaderships, neither Democrat nor Republican, have put forth a plan that can earn 60 votes in the Senate. So we're working together across the aisle to ensure that we present something worthy of the American people's attention.
It's paid for and take steps to ensure we root out fraud. We're calling for a vote by December 18th in both chambers of Congress to get something done before premiums rise in January.
Their proposal extends the Obamacare enhanced tax credits through 2027 and adds an income cap at $200,000 per year for a family of four, while also addressing fraud in the program. The fact that it addresses these two issues, which are big issues for Republicans, means that it could gain steam from Republican leadership in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, Democrat leadership wants to extend Obamacare as is without any reforms for the next 3 years. Senate Republicans have promised a vote to Democrats on this proposal next week. Republicans are eyeing a plan that will temporarily extend Obamacare subsidies with the long-term goal of total reform or wiping it out completely, replacing it with a new system altogether. Here's why.
The ACA was written by insurance companies for insurance companies. This has been, you look at their profits since 2014, since Obama came in, it's been nothing but rise, rise, rise. Democrats realize this, so they're pouring more and more taxpayer money into a failing system.
If it was affordable, you wouldn't need the additional subsidies. So getting all of those middlemen out of the equation is one of the things that we want to do.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune said there's steam behind an idea to allow self-employed people and small businesses to participate in something they call association coverage, which would allow individuals to collectively negotiate better health insurance rates. Now, some Republicans, including President Trump, has said that an extension of Obamacare may be needed while they find a deal that can get 60 votes in the Senate and pass the Republican-controlled House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Thank you, Melina. And GOP Representative Matt Van Epps was sworn into Congress this morning, 2 days after he won a special election in Tennessee.
Congratulations, you're now a member of the 119th Congress. I stand here today humbled by the trust the people of Tennessee's 7th District have placed in me. I come to this distinguished body as a Christian, a husband, and a father, and an Army Special Operations helicopter pilot with 9 combat tours, who has seen firsthand what makes this nation exceptional. I will work every day with President Trump and my colleagues in this House to deliver on the America First agenda. Our constituents are looking for results. The people of Tennessee didn't send me here to just give a speech. They sent me here to deliver, and that is exactly what I intend to do.
In the Tuesday special election, the former state commissioner and Army helicopter pilot defeated Democrat Afton Bann with just over 53% of the vote. Bann finished with roughly 46%. Van Epps will represent 14 counties in Middle Tennessee, filling the seat vacated by Congressman Mark Green. His election win helps Republicans maintain their narrow House majority heading into 2026. Vaccine advisors to the CDC are considering a major change to the childhood vaccine schedule. The CDC's advisory committee is meeting today and tomorrow to reconsider some of its fundamental guidelines.
Many of you will recall that in September, ACIP deferred a vote on proposed changes to the hepatitis B vaccination schedule. That decision was not about hesitation or reluctance. It was about standards. Several data elements the committee requested were incomplete, and the evidence did not yet meet the level of clarity required for a confident, evidence-based recommendation.
First, we need to address stakeholder and parent dissatisfaction that we have become aware of. Second, we need to report on the work group's review. More on that later today. Third, we need to consider whether there are immunization policies that are better aligned with other countries similar to ours, are based on evidence and support the need of high-risk persons and populations without treating everyone as if they were genetically the same, and explicitly consider public health and vaccination ethics.
The Vaccine Advisors are a group that was handpicked by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Earlier this year, Kennedy said that giving the hepatitis B vaccine to newborns is motivated by money, not health concerns. The committee is considering whether to recommend the birth dose only for babies whose mothers test positive. For other babies, it will be up to the parents and their doctors to decide if a birth dose is appropriate. The committee is expected to vote on language that says when a family decides not to get a birth dose, then the vaccination series should begin when the child is 2 months old. Infection disease experts argue the vaccine is key to preventing an illness that's easy to catch and impossible to cure. They say that delaying the vaccine for even a few months will drive up infections and deaths from the disease. And President Trump could decide next year to withdraw from the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. That's according to a report by Politico today, citing Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Greer says Trump only wants deals that are good deal. Greer also raised the idea of negotiating separately with Canada and Mexico. The USMCA agreement faces an upcoming review. Trump yesterday said it will either be left to expire or another deal will be worked out. The agreement replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement in 2020. Weekly jobless claims are dropping. The number of Americans filing new applications for unemployment benefits dropped to the lowest in more than 3 years last week. New Labor Department data shows 191,000 people applied for first-time unemployment benefits during the week that ended November 29th. That's a drop of 27,000 from the prior week's revised tally. Claims activity typically dips during holiday weeks. Continuing claims fell by 4,000 to 1.93 million for the week that ended November 22nd. The level of continuing claims remains near a 4-year high. It indicates that it's hard for people to find work when they lose their job. And the New York Times is suing the Department of Defense. The lawsuit is set to be filed in federal court in Washington, D.C. It's over the Pentagon's new restrictions on press access that was instituted in October. The suit seeks to repeal the new policy. The Defense Department, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and the Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell are named as defendants in the lawsuit. The Times noted that dozens of news outlets have taken a collective stand against the access restrictions, including conservative outlets like Fox News and Newsmax. New York Attorney General Letitia James is seeking to disqualify President Trump's U.S. attorney pick for the state's Northern District. John Sarcone was appointed to the position as an acting U.S. attorney by the Trump administration and soon began investigating the state's civil case against President Trump. He issued subpoenas in that case for records relating to the Trump administration's finances, as well as the National Rifle Association. Lawyers for James's office will be in court today, arguing that Sarcone's appointment is improper and the subpoenas are invalid. This is the latest in a string of challenges to Trump's U.S. attorney picks. 4 other acting attorneys for the U.S. appointments have already been ruled unlawful. An ICE officer has arrested an Afghan man accused of supporting the ISIS terrorist group. Up ahead, we'll have how this arrest is increasing scrutiny of a Biden-era program for refugees. And the U.S. restricts visas for Nigerians in connection with Christian killings. And a Haitian gang leader is sentenced to life for kidnapping missionaries, including young children. Those stories up ahead. Welcome back. President Donald Trump is rolling back Biden-era fuel economy standards. He's issued an executive order he says will lower car prices and protect U.S. car jobs. Here's that story.
President Trump says the fuel economy rules under former President Biden were burdensome and expensive. And the administration says it tried to push electric vehicles on people when they didn't want them. The administration says rolling back the rules would cut car prices by about $1,000 and save Americans more than $100 billion.
Today, my administration has taken historic action to lower costs for American consumers, protect American auto jobs, and make buying a car much more affordable for countless American families and also safer.
The White House characterized Biden's standards as effectively an EV mandate, forcing automakers to subsidize electric vehicles by raising prices on gas-powered cars. Auto executives from Ford, GM, and Stellantis stood with the president as he signed the order, praising the move as a win for affordability and manufacturing.
We believe that people should be able to make a choice, as you said, Mr. President, and we will invest more in affordable vehicles.
National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett told Fox News yesterday Biden's targets were so high that no gasoline car on the market could meet them.
Well, one of the things that we saw as we were studying the Biden policies towards automobiles is that they were trying to basically end the internal combustion engine with fuel economy standards that were crazy.
Trump says American auto manufacturing has already risen 10% this year. The action is also part of his larger effort to dismantle environmental rules. The White House says the new standards will remain in place even if future presidents attempt to restore stricter rules.
And the U.S. is moving to restrict visas for Nigerians and their family members involved in mass killings and violence against Christians. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the step, which the State Department announced yesterday.
President Trump recently singled out Nigeria for the killing of Christians by what he called radical Islamists. Last month, Trump also said he has ordered the Pentagon to begin planning for potential military action in Nigeria following the reports of Christian persecution. Secretary of State Marco Rubio wrote on X yesterday that the United States is taking decisive action in response to the mass killings and violence against Christians in Nigeria and beyond. He says the State Department will restrict U.S. visas for those who knowingly direct, authorize, fund, support, or carry out violations of religious freedom. This visa policy applies to Nigeria and other governments or individuals that persecute people for their religious beliefs, and that the restrictions are in line with a new policy under the Immigration and Nationality Act. The move follows the designation of Nigeria by the U.S. as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act last month. An estimated 50,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria since 2009, including roughly 7,000 in just the first half of 2025. Most of the violence is attributed to terrorist group Boko Haram and Fulani ethnic militants. The ongoing persecution has drawn growing attention from U.S. lawmakers and others. Nigeria's population of about 220 million people is split almost equally between Christians and Muslims. And an alleged Haitian gang leader who orchestrated the 2021 kidnapping of 16 American Christian missionaries has been sentenced to life in prison. 34-year-old Jolie Germain, known as Yon Yon, directed the hostage-taking from a Haitian prison, targeting members of Christian aid ministries, including 5 children. The missionaries were returning from a visit to an orphanage when kidnappers forced their bus to stop.
He held a family, young children, 6 years old, 3 years old, and 8 months, held them for 62 days.
The gang demanded $1 million per hostage or Germain's own release. The hostages were held at gunpoint but eventually managed to escape. A federal jury convicted him on 16 counts of hostage-taking and conspiracy. Germain was already serving 35 years for gun trafficking and laundering ransom money for his alleged gang 400 Mawozo, one of Haiti's most violent criminal groups. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And federal authorities have arrested an Afghan national on suspicion of supporting the ISIS terrorist group. The arrest is raising concerns about earlier vetting failures. Homeland Security says Yan Shah Safi entered the U.S. through Operation Allies Welcome, former President Biden's program for Afghan refugees after the Taliban took over in 2021. ICE agents apprehended Safi yesterday in Virginia. The DHS says Safi provided support to a regional branch of ISIS and also supplied weapons to his father, a military commander in Afghanistan. The arrest comes days after two other Afghan nationals, one accused in a deadly National Guard shooting and another charged with making bomb threats, were taken into custody. The DHS says both men had entered the country under Operation Allies Welcome. And applicants of H-1B visas for highly skilled workers will soon need to go through stricter social media vetting. The State Department is rolling out new online presence reviews for all H-1B visa applicants. The department announced yesterday all H-1B applicants and their dependents will have to make their social media profiles public. The new rules go into effect on the 15th of this month. The department says the expanded screening is meant to safeguard national interests and to make sure each applicant can credibly prove visa eligibility. H-1B visas allow U.S. employers to hire foreign workers in specialty fields and are crucial for tech companies in the U.S., which recruit heavily from countries including India and China. The new rules direct consular officers to search resumes and LinkedIn profiles for any role linked to censorship or online content control. Applicants found responsible for suppressing protected expression in the United States could now be deemed ineligible for a visa. And federal agents have launched a coordinated immigration operation across the New Orleans area with the goal of arresting 5,000 illegal immigrants. Officials say they're targeting illegal immigrants accused of violent crimes. The Department of Homeland Security says the operation is prioritizing illegal immigrants who were released after previously being locked up in local jails. The FBI says assaults or attempts to impede immigration enforcement would bring consequences. Louisiana's Attorney General echoed that message, saying anyone who interferes with ICE or Border Patrol will face prosecution. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
Cataloo Crunch, which we are launching today down in New Orleans, we're first and foremost really focusing on those worst of the worst criminals.
The Department of Homeland Security launches the latest federal immigration enforcement operation in the city of New Orleans. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says that ICE is specifically prioritizing illegal immigrants who were previously in local jails.
Because New Orleans functions as a sanctuary city, those individuals were not released to ICE. They were instead released back onto New Orleans streets.
McLaughlin says that the operation will continue whether it be 5,000 arrests or more. The DHS released information on some of the people they are targeting, saying sanctuary policies endanger American communities by releasing illegal criminal aliens and forcing DHS law enforcement to risk their lives to remove criminal illegal aliens that should have never been put back on the streets. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says that Operation Cataloo Crunch will remove the worst of the worst from New Orleans, Louisiana, after the city's sanctuary politicians have ignored the rule of law. New Orleans Mayor-elect Helena Moreno has been critical of the federal surge in the city, even launching a website instructing people how to navigate interactions with federal agents. Moreno says, "My first priority is to keep our community safe. The reports of due process violations and potential abuses in other cities are concerning. I want our community to be aware and informed of the protections available under law." Some stores in New Orleans have posted signs saying that ICE is not allowed inside unless they have a warrant. Meanwhile, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry has been outspoken in his support for federal assistance.
We welcome our federal partners. We've seen it work in other parts of the state, in New Orleans as well. And we're going to just lean in even heavier to make our streets safe.
Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thanks to Jason for that report. And a California doctor was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison yesterday for illegally supplying Friends star Matthew Perry with ketamine, the powerful sedative that caused the actor's drug overdose death in 2023. Here are the details.
Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who operated an urgent care clinic outside Los Angeles, pleaded guilty in federal court in July to 4 felony counts of illegal distribution of the prescription anesthetic. He could have faced up to 40 years in prison had he been convicted at trial. He is the first of 5 people to be sentenced in connection with Perry's death, all of whom pleaded guilty. Perry publicly acknowledged a history of substance abuse. He was found by his live-in assistant floating face down and lifeless in the hot tub of his Los Angeles home. An autopsy concluded Perry died from the acute effects of ketamine, and other factors that caused him to lose consciousness and drown. Toxicology tests found ketamine in Perry's body at high levels, within a range typically associated with general anesthesia used in monitored surgical care.
Up ahead, the U.S. is reviewing ties with Tanzania after election violence in the African nation. Hundreds were reportedly killed in October, though the government disputes those numbers. I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. Thai officials today said remains handed over to Israel by terrorists in Gaza belong to the last Thai hostage taken during the October 7th terror attack. The agricultural worker from Thailand was employed at Kibbutz Be'eri. 20 living hostages and the remains of 27 others have been returned to Israel since the latest ceasefire began in early October. With just one hostage left, the sides are close to wrapping up the first phase of the ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today Israel is committed to bringing the last hostage back for a proper burial in Israel. Netanyahu also announced a new head of Mossad, his military secretary Major General Roman Goffman. And the Israeli military said today its forces have killed around 40 Hamas terrorists. They were trapped in tunnels in southern Gaza, in an area now under Israeli control. According to Israeli and U.S. officials, around 200 Hamas members had been trapped in the tunnels for months. Washington and other mediators had been seeking to reach a deal for the Hamas terrorists to lay down their arms. That's in exchange for passage to other parts of the enclave, but those talks have faltered. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff had said the deal would be a test for a broader process to disarm Hamas across Gaza. And Russian President Vladimir Putin landed in India today. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed him at the airport. Putin is in New Delhi for a two-day state visit. India and Russia both said they want to boost mutual trade and expand the variety of items in transactions. Next, French President Emmanuel Macron is in China today to meet with the regime's leader Xi Jinping. Macron is seeking to involve Beijing in pressuring Russia toward a ceasefire with Ukraine. China has provided strong diplomatic support to Russia since its invasion of Ukraine and has also extended an economic lifeline to Russia through increased trade.
I hope that China could join our call and our efforts to achieve, at the earliest possibility, at the very least, a ceasefire in the form of a moratorium of strikes targeting critical infrastructure. This is key for the coming winter, as civilian infrastructure, in particular energy infrastructure, is still under Russian fire today. But more broadly, we must work together to achieve a just and lasting peace which respects international law.
The two also talked about key industries such as aerospace, nuclear energy, and artificial intelligence. This marks Macron's fourth state visit to the country. In his past dealings with China, Macron has sought to project a strong European front while being careful not to provoke Beijing. France is set to take on the presidency of the Group of Seven next year. And the United States is reviewing its relationship with Tanzania amid concerns over religious freedom. The U.S. issued security alerts for Americans in the country after a general election in October was marred by violent demonstrations. Rights groups, opposition parties, and the United Nations have said hundreds of people were likely killed in the clashes. The government disputed those figures as exaggerated. The country's president has said the election was fair and promised to investigate the violence. More updates on the case of Linda Sun, the former top aide to two New York governors accused of spying for China. Sun's husband, Chris Hu, sat in the defendant's seat alongside her in court this week. Prosecutors detailed how Chinese authorities allegedly made business deals with Hu as part of a quid pro quo arrangement with Sun. The U.S. government accuses her of aiding Beijing while working as a state official. The allegations include blocking meetings between the New York governor and Taiwanese officials, faking documents in order to bring Chinese delegations to New York, and secretly looping a Chinese diplomat into an internal state government conference call on COVID-19. NTD's Flora Hua has the latest.
At Tuesday's hearing of Linda's son, 2 spreadsheets created by son's husband Chris Hu were in the spotlight. Prosecutors allege Hu used them to track kickbacks the couple received from China. They appear to document tens of millions of dollars flowing into Hu's accounts from 2016 to 2024, all from Chinese individuals. The prosecutor's evidence suggests the couple used this money to fund their lavish life and pay for Hawaii property worth millions of dollars. The U.S. government accuses son of aiding Beijing while working as a New York State official. But that's not all. Evidence details how son allegedly represented New York State in China multiple times. But it seems she was acting at the directive of Chinese individuals tied to the regime. Based on messages shown during the trial, prosecutors say that one individual in the chat, Zhang Fuyin, is affiliated with the CCP's United Front Work Department. The organization helps Beijing to infiltrate overseas Chinese communities to advance the CCP's agenda. In the chat, Zhang mentioned one of son's speeches must be finalized by Chinese officials. Prosecutors say that in return, son was gifted free trips to China for her family, and friends. On the trips, son's husband was granted business meetings with Chinese authorities and companies. Flora Hua, NTD News.
And for more exclusive China news and in-depth analysis, tune in to China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. 6 million fans will journey to the United States for the FIFA World Cup. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says travel will be seamless. And New Yorkers gathered at Rockefeller Center last night to see the lighting of one of the most iconic Christmas trees in New York City and the world. That and more ahead. The FIFA World Cup trophy has arrived in Washington, D.C., touring some of the United States Capitol's most iconic sites ahead of the final draw tomorrow. Soccer's ultimate prize was then showcased at the legendary John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The historic 48-team final draw for the FIFA World Cup 2026 will take place tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says 6 million fans will journey to the U.S. for the event. Duffy said the government would make travel into the country seamless.
We're going to make it as easy as possible so you can come in and enjoy the great World Cup event that's going to go off.
Duffy said the Transportation Department has been working on plans for air, rail, bus, subway, and car travel. He added that President Trump gave all cabinet heads a directive to, quote, make sure this is the greatest sporting event for the World Cup ever. The 2026 World Cup will take place from June 11th to July 19th across 16 host cities in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Leaders of all 3 countries will attend the final draw in D.C. tomorrow. Over to Europe, in a ceremony at Athens' Panathinaikos Stadium, the Olympic flame for the Milan Cortina Winter Games was formally handed to Italian organizers today. From Athens, the flame will travel to Italy, where it will begin at a 63-day relay through all 110 Italian provinces before reaching Milan for the opening ceremony on February 6th. Italy will host the flame for the first time in 20 years, and 10,000 torch bearers have been organized. The iconic Rockefeller Center Christmas tree was lit up last night as the holiday season kicks off in New York City. Crowds of people gathered in Midtown Manhattan wearing Santa hats and Christmas lights to watch and cheer. The 75-foot tree is lit by more than 50,000 colored LED lights, topped by a Swarovski star weighing 900 pounds. The lighting ceremony also featured performances by Radio City Rockettes, Michael Bublé, and Gwen Stefani, among others. This year's lighting ceremony marks the 92nd year of the annual tradition, following the first ceremony back in 1993. The tree will be on display until mid-January, where it will then be milled into lumber for use by the nonprofit Habitat for Humanity. The Pentagon, too, has got into the festive spirit. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth yesterday lit the Pentagon's Christmas tree.
So in this season, we worship, we reflect, we rest, and of course, with our families, we eventually feast. We prepare to spend time together, remember the ones that we love, and we remember the ones that are fighting to protect all of us, to bring peace on earth and goodwill toward men, except narco-terrorists.
The ceremony even featured Santa riding on an armored vehicle. And with the holidays right around the corner, you may want to plan ahead if you're planning on shipping gifts. The shipping deadline for USPS ground and first-class mail is in about 2 weeks if you want your package to be delivered in the U.S. before Christmas Day. The priority mail deadline is December 18th. That does not include addresses in Hawaii or Alaska. Fedex recommends shipping between December 17th and 23rd for home delivery by December 24th. FedEx overnight and same day will be available until December 24th. UPS recommends shipping packages by December 19th for 3-day select. You can also ship December 22nd with 2-day shipping or the 23rd with next day air. That's all we have time for this hour, but if you have any feedback on our show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll cover more news right after this break.